Hey everybody, welcome back to Miles and Mentors. We have another great one lined up for you today with Jeff Dickinson from RGTX Logistics and the host of the Storytelling Chronicles. You might know him as the Bodacious Cowboy. So stick with us. We're going to dive all through his experience in the industry, tap into that lived and learned knowledge that we can then pass on to you. So we have a great one lined up for you right after this on Miles and Mentors.
Welcome to Miles and Mentors, the podcast that humanizes trucking. Getting real-life advice and insights from logistics professionals from all over the industry. We sit down with those seasoned mentors who have put in the miles with a mission to pass on the knowledge gained from years in the industry to you. Now buckle up and enjoy the show.
Hey, what's going on, Jeff? Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Alex. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm stoked to have you on the show today. You're one of those guys that I've kept up with for a while. I get to see doing all your content online, and it's a pleasure to have you on and be able to pick your brain.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, in the back room, I'm an open canvas, so ask away and let me see if you can stump me.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, we're stoked to kind of dive into your whole experience throughout your career, and I think that's a good spot. Like, what is it that brought you to this logistics journey in the very first place? Why this industry?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's been asked several times. And my honesty, integrity, and transparency is first and foremost in this industry. But I didn't jump into it. My wife got me into it. I literally owned a roofing company back in the very, very early 80s. And I was working on this old Victorian home, 3 stories up with old Yankee gutters. Those are the wooden gutters with the pool liners on that. And I was working on that, and end of the day, and I did something stupid, and I almost fell off the roof, and I backhand on my left side a vent pipe, which prevented me from going off the roof, and that just wow. I would say it kind of scared the hell out of me. And within 2 weeks, I sold everything. My trucks, equipment, everything. So I was like, well, what the heck am I going to do now? And so my wife said to me, well, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know. I have always been a worker. I started when I was like 11, 12 years old and hustled. And my wife saw this job opening at Krupp's of North America, which is now Mullinex. And so I went in there, didn't know anything, and looked for a warehouse job, and I was hired. And everything just took off from there. My boss was fantastic. Make a long story short, we hit it off so good. He was my best man in my wedding, and we're still best of friends today, 45 years later. So it's pretty neat.
That's fantastic, man. It's always fascinating to see, how people got into this industry. Now, obviously, you were a business owner in an entirely different industry. Did you ever have an inkling of like maybe trying something out on this side, or just not at all in your sights?
Nope, it wasn't in my vision. That's for damn sure, But I can tell you that once I got into it, my intuitive nature, wanting to learn, took over. Yeah. And it just started escalating like from day one. Things just didn't seem logical. And that's a pretty good, word in logistics, right? That, right. A lot of things are logical in what we do every day in this industry, and things weren't adding up. So I kept on asking those pertinent questions and getting those answers, and then taking it and making it my own way, which went over well. But there was a lot of failures, Alex, between then and now. That's for sure.
Definitely. And, I think that's a strong point, right? Like you hear from all the most successful people out there, and they're like, I am where I am because I failed enough times to get where I am. And there's a lot of learning that happens there,
Yes, absolutely. In order to climb, you got to fail. You got to fall on your face several times, get banged up. I had very good mentors and coaches and disciplinarians. I must put that, in quotes there, disciplinarians that kicked my ass. I mean, I'm just like when I really needed it. And if it wasn't for those guys that believed in what I was doing and set me straight, I don't think that I would be here today. I really don't.
Yeah. I think it's a fascinating point because you've gone from that aspect of changing careers, coming into this industry, having to learn all of that, and then fast forward to today. Now you're a mentor for so many in the industry. I mean, all the content you put out is huge learning and insightful material that are helping people left and right. But let's go back to kind of the mentors in your path. Like coming into this, you mentioned mentors and disciplinarians. Talk to us a little bit about that learning path and, where you gained a lot of the starts of the knowledge that you really set you onto this path.
Yeah, like I said, I was a warehouseman.
Okay.
I loved it. I couldn't wait to wake up in the morning and get into a warehouse and stock shelves and pick orders and drive forklifts and load trucks, thousands of them, But my instinct was like, I don't want to do this. I saw it as
Mm.
very early in my career that there's no way in hell that I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Drive a forklift, pick
Yeah.
orders, back orders, kit them, and load trucks. So, when I started moving up, when I was interviewed at Onkyo USA, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Everybody gets that question. And so I
Yeah.
told my boss that time, I said, I'm going to take your job. And he looked at me like, man, you get some nerve, just coming out of
Right.
the box and saying that. And lo and behold, 4 years later, I took his job, and we're best of friends. I mean, still to this day, and we're going back into, the mid to late 80s. And, I worked there for 10 years and just started changing things from, the things that just didn't look right or were working the way that I would want them. And I guess that's the reason when I started making those change, and I even started, integrating tools back in the late 80s.
Yeah.
I got into the technology of it, and we didn't have much back then, Alex. We had very limited ability to do things. We didn't have the cell phones at the time. We had landlines, fax machines,
Yeah.
printers, not, Nextels, the way that we were communicating. And it's very interesting, working with nothing to having something now and still going back to the old ways in which you worked
Mm.
because you know that it worked, and following the technology over time and adapting to it. That's really critical in this business now more than ever, Alex, is that if you're not adapting to technology changes and the innovations that we're seeing, you're going to get lost. You're
Yeah.
going to get lost really, really quick because you got to gain knowledge every single day about something new in this industry, or you're going to be left behind. I mean, you probably read a lot of my content about that in my post. Stay on top of your game. Get around that corner before somebody else beats you there. That's how you succeed. But you're going to fall. You're going to fail.
Yeah.
Because that's the learning curve, that bell curve. Some will succeed, some's going to fail, and it's what you do with failure that really matters. Not what really matters in this industry.
100%. Now, looking back at your career here, I mean, you've worn multiple hats in this industry. You've gone from being on the shipper side to running your own logistics service company. What would you say are some of like the biggest lessons you've learned throughout the time that you've been in this industry?
That one, it's okay to fail. That no two companies are the same. That if you believe in yourself and the idealism and the innovation and your thought process, you may go into a company and it just may not be a fit. You go in there and you hear everything that you want to hear, but yet,
Hmm.
it's not going to work. And I talked about having that ability to adapt, but there's sometimes when you shouldn't adapt because it's wrong, because
Yeah.
it's going to be detrimental to your career rather than an extension or lead on to bigger and better things. And I faced that, and it was hard. to take that failure and then just know, hey, this isn't the place for me. Let me get the hell out and go to some place where I can really use my knowledge that I've learned over the years. And that was going way back. And, I just progressed. I've worked on the green side, on the dark side, and rode the fence, on the shipper side, on the carrier side, on the broker and 3PL, 4PL side. So
Right.
all that knowledge that I've gained over that time, I decided in 2019 to start my own business. And that came in so handy because I tell everybody, I'm not successful because I know sales. I suck at sales. I mean, and you're like, how can you have a business and suck at sales and be successful? Because those are the failures that you have to put your back up against the wall and understand that side, and then use your knowledge. I'm a closer. I'm not a door opener. But when I got a little bit more acclimated to that side, and I started at brokerages before, things just started falling into place, and I became very comfortable. And one thing in this industry too, you have to be uncomfortable to get comfortable. It's the best place to be.
That's fascinating, man. And to kind of dive into that as well, as we've talked about everything you've learned, especially going back to the mentor aspect, going into opening your own business and being where you're at today, would you say that you still have mentors?
I do. I always ask other people for their advice.
Yeah.
It's kind of stupid if you don't, because I don't care who you are. Nobody out there is an expert. There really isn't, because if you're an expert, you're a know-it-all. And there's nobody in this industry that's a know-it-all. You know your strong points, your weaknesses, you know where you need attention, and you seek those people. To be successful, you always want to hire or talk to other people who are much smarter than you. You don't want to be the big elephant in the room. You want to be that mouse. You want to go in there and pretty much stand back and listen. And the biggest thing in this industry, it's one thing to listen, and it's another thing to listen with intent. That's the biggest word in this industry. If you're listening with intent to understand and then to be understood, then you're going to gain traction, and people are going to gravitate towards you. Everybody in this industry, they have lovers, they have haters, and they have the neutral people that don't care either way, but be authentic. That's the truism of being in logistics. Don't compare yourself to other people. If you believe in yourself and others who believed in you, and the reason why you're here, trust that instinct and go with it, and don't let other people defer you from your best course of action, to handle something.
I love that. So I got to ask here, you've came into this industry, you've had mentors, you still have mentors, you're a business owner. Logistics is an industry unlike others. Like, it does not stop. And you can say that about a lot of industries, I suppose, but it's very, very true in logistics. It is go, go, go. And if you're going to be a business owner, you got to be go, go, go within this industry. So within that, why devote your time to mentoring others? Because you're a business owner, your content that you put out is not just salesy for your business. You're truly mentoring. You're offering value and teaching. Why do you see that as a value point in your career to put into those others?
Because I know it's important. That's how I learned. If I wanted to be a consultant, I could be a consultant and charge whatever I want. But I know what those people went through. I know the area that they're in, and what they kind of need. And it's all I'm doing is suggesting. It's an option. You don't have to believe in it. You don't have to do it. But I'm trying to give you a better perspective from somebody that has done that. If I say something, I've done that. I've done a lot of stuff, and like I said, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I've been in the trenches. I have that practical experience where when somebody says something, I'm not trying to be rude, or disrespectful. I'm just saying, no, that's incorrect. And here's the reason why. And that's what I received over that. You got to share what people shared with you. You got to be a good person, a good human being in logistics to help those that are struggling. And one of the biggest things too, and again, my honesty, integrity, and transparency is first and foremost. And a lot of problems that brokers are having out there is that they have a lack of training. I mean, it's a fact. I've been on the receiving side of brokers. I'm not afraid to say that I hate brokers, and that's one of the reasons why I became one, because I wanted to correct the wrong. I know what it's like to be a shipper and a prospect and getting calls from brokers that don't know their ass from their elbow, and they just come at you with the same pitch. They're not authentic. They're not knowledgeable. They haven't done their research. If somebody really wants to get somebody's attention, I'm sorry, but you got to do your homework. It's earned. It's not given. And if you want to move forward and build your business, these are the steps that you need to take. I don't care who the heck you are. It's quality over quantity of calls made. Make sure you're talking to the right people and that that industry like the back of your hand. Don't waste that person's time. They don't have time to spend with you to listen to the same pitch slap, as I call it. My good friend, John told me this, and John Brewer, and I just started laughing out. I said, that's exactly what it is. It's a pitch slap. Don't be like others. If you're having a problem with it, or you're not having that proper training, you're going to fail. You're going to be out of the industry really quick.
Yeah. I love that. That's fantastic insight. And what it really boils down to for me is we all depend on this industry in one shape or another. I mean, without this industry, this nation, this world crumbles, right? Like it is the backbone of it all. And as many business owners come in, oftentimes there's so much time wasted trying to learn it from the ground up, reinvent the wheel, so to speak, when there's so many value points like yourself and so many others throughout this industry that can be those valuable mentors to help give you that firm foundation to then build upon, to not only get them off as a successful business, but to make sure that overall we improve the industry, because we all need it. We need it to be better than it was, right? So
Absolutely.
thank you for all you do in that regard, man.
Yeah. I definitely enjoy it. A lot of people my age retire, but I love what I do. It's not a job; it's an adventure. I love to wake up every morning and go on safari and hunt. It's in my blood. It's in my blood. Been doing it for 45 years. I know it like the back of my hand to a certain degree, and I follow the technology, and I beta test a lot of different tools that are out there, because a lot of them out there are overlapped, and they don't have the practical experience from somebody that's worked on the inside out, because most of them work from the outside in. And they don't understand the mechanisms of logistics and how they're intertwined and what makes, freight move, not from the outside in a truck and going from A to B, but everything behind the scenes and the complexity of it, and the only way you get that knowledge is to be in it and work it, fail at it, succeed at it, and then make those changes, and that's what I did, over the last few decades.
Yeah.
And it's critical, to move the industry forward. And again, I'm not always right, but there's some things that are overlooked.
So let me ask you this, man. You said 45 years in the industry. What exactly would you say has kept you around? Why do you love this industry so much?
Because I really enjoy doing what I do. Like I said earlier, to me, it's not a job. If my wife was in here right now, you can ask her, what does Jeff do in the morning? And she'll say, well, when I come into his office, he's usually laughing with his partner, and it's like he's having a lot of fun, and does it get stressful? I'm over that stress. I still got a head of hair, and look at this mustache, man.
Love it.
A lot of people are bald, and wrinkled at my age and stuff. You got to control the controllables. That's a big thing that I've learned over the years and decades. Control the controllables and push everything else by the wayside. Look at what's in front of you, and yes, multitasking is a big thing in logistics, but you got to learn how to work smarter, not harder, to do more in less time.
Yeah.
That's critical in your success. Once you learn how to streamline and what's working, what's not working, and being able to pull all those things together, things will start making sense. But you got to understand why you should do that, and what kind of outcomes going to happen from doing so. And that's what I try to tell people. Like I said, I don't know all the answers, and what may work for me may not work for others, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
I know there's a better way.
100%. Now, a big portion of our following is those company drivers getting into being owner operators, fleet owners, et cetera, and tapping into that experience of yours of being a business owner, going out on your own.
Mhm.
Finances are always a concern, a hurdle, right? Like that's a fear point in the industry, is, being able to survive financially. So I'd ask you, running a logistics business, considering those financial challenges, what are some of the biggest hurdles that you face growing and sustaining RGTX Logistics?
Yeah. So I'm not afraid to say this. The first year in business, I made $900.
Yeah.
$900. I mean, most people will be saying, "Oh, the hell with this," And I was just trying to figure it out. It was a tough time, but I knew I had it upstairs and the knowledge base that was necessary, to move forward. And it wasn't easy because, like I said, I wasn't a sales guy. But you know, since that time when I started and where I am now, and last year, let's put it this way, Alex. A lot of people failed miserably last year
Yeah.
because the economy and the state of the market. Being a bear market rather than a bull market, and nobody knows, when it's going to change. As a business owner, and being up 74% over the year prior, that's good. Having that kind of revenue increase, and I've been building on that ever since. I'm very particular who the prospects and shippers that I go out to. I do not work the spot market. I do not work the load boards. That is what I call the petri dish for fraud to grow
Mhm.
from.
Yeah.
I'm a dedicated service provider. I've only dealt with, most of my career, enterprise shippers. The larger the companies, the more complex the logistics is, the happier I am. A lot of people be like, "No way," But for me, it is like, I understand it, and I would rather have, you know, three $50 million enterprise shippers than have 20, and then working my tail off and not knowing when the shipments are going to come in. I mean, all my business, I can it's all dedicated, so all drop and hook.
Yeah.
Some is multi-stop, and I can send out my raycons for weeks on end because it's stable. My customers, well, I should say clients, because customers are different than clients. um, my clients have been on board with me 3.5, 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's not reinventing the wheel. Anybody can do that, but what's the value? What's the value add to keeping them on board? I have that status that I always have in the back of my mind: clients for life, because it's cheaper to keep a client on board, right, than
Yeah.
trying to find a replacement. you know
That's for
you're,
sure.
you're going to spend a lot of money, and then you got to reinvent the wheel. So why would you want to lose that? Will it happen? Could it happen? Sure, but you want to try to keep them on board as long as you can, and get
Definitely.
those references and those referrals and all of that. It's key.
Definitely. Another point that comes to mind in this industry, as far as a financial part of it, is equipment. That's a big challenge for a lot of companies. What are your thoughts regarding leasing versus purchasing? And have you seen any strategies within that that work well to balance that growth while you're trying to keep your costs in check as a business?
Well, I don't have any. I don't have any assets, trucks, or anything like that. So, I wouldn't be correct for me to answer that, because I know about that. I've worked on the trucking side, and I know that, you know, over the COVID time, a lot of people extended themselves way beyond their means because they wanted to get in it. Everybody was making bank and making a killing out there, and all of a sudden it came to a stop. They were overspending. They weren't budgeting themselves. They didn't know how to forecast. I mean, look, let's face it, they bought high, and it's a mortgage payment. Those trucks out there are a mortgage payment, and then all of a sudden, when that money's not coming in, and you can't pay for your truck, you can't do the PMs on your vehicles, you can't do the pre-check inspections because you're afraid what you're going to uncover. You don't have the money to buy a set of tires, or change brakes, or airlines, or brake canisters. I mean, it could just go on and on. They push it and push it and push it. Like one of my really good friends, Dean Croak. Do you know Dean from Data Analytics?
I know the name. I don't know him personally.
Well, he said it. He said it made a lot of sense. A lot of the guys that are out there that are struggling, they're one breakdown away from bankruptcy.
Mhm.
And it's true because the margin is so suppressed out there. And I'm carrier friendly. I love my carriers. I take care of my carriers. I thank my carriers. Sometimes you'll see me at a truck stop with a tent and a table, and I give out gift cards, and I knock on their door and say, "Hey, thanks." I don't know how many times you get thanks during the year, but you don't do business with me, and I appreciate what you do. I go to the local
Right.
ones out on the highway and stuff like that, and I ask them about their job, and say to them, "Hey, when was the last time you saw your family? How's your kids? How many times are you home? What's the hardest part about your job?" I like to know those kind of things. My intuitive nature is I want to know what a carrier does. So what did I do? I went in for a long haul drive with a carrier. I want to know what he did on the highway. I want to know the problems when he bangs a dock and when he makes a delivery, and all the crap that he puts out when he's on the highway. That is the best knowledge that you can gain. So you have a perfectly good understanding of how they operate. So it's a struggle out there. You gotta mind your finances like there's no tomorrow. And I know these guys are out there struggling, and I'm trying to give them as much as I possibly can, but it's not me that's in control.
Yeah.
It's the shippers that are in control. And yes, we all have to make money to survive in this, but I was a shipper once. So my mentality is a little bit different than most brokers out there. Margins to me, yes, I need to make them, but I'm not going to rake my clients over the coals. I want consistent business, and I want them to grow with me. And I'm not going to make the big buck on each move because that's not sustainability. I make a decent margin, but I'm not making 18, 20, 35% margins and
Right.
stuff like that. Not even close, but I got volume. I got volume, and my clients love me, and that's why they're on board, and I'm doing very well. So,
That's fantastic, man. From your insight into the industry, both on your side of the industry and the carriers that you've dealt with, what's something in like financial planning advice that you could give? Do you think services like factoring are like financially feasible, or are worth it in this industry, or what is the best way to kind of keep your business, with an influx of working capital?
well, the thing is that, you have to look at what you want to do as a carrier out there, as a driver. Do you want to be regional? You want to be super regional? Do you want to be long haul? And what does that mean to the overall operating cost,
Yeah.
and your OR? in order to provide a service? Are you overextending yourself? Or you're getting good money on a front hole and a back hole, you're losing your shirt on it, or something like that. What's the wear and tear that you're doing on your vehicle? Or you're keeping up with the PMs, because if you keep on extending yourself, like I said earlier, and you're not keeping up with them, what may cost you $200 today may cost you 2,000 later on,
Very true.
and it's like, so what are you doing with that? And it really comes down with being able to budget yourself and knowing what your operating costs are. A lot of guys don't know what their operating costs are, but you really got to break it down. What are you going to make yourself? What are you going to put into, your retirement? What are you going to put into your operations in order to sustain them and keep them moving? Because that's your bread and butter. I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of drivers don't know that. They do not know that. And they would rather sit and not make money than to move and make little, because it's putting wear and tear on their trucks. So they're being very smart out there, and that's why I'm dedicated, because I like to keep my carriers moving all the time. They don't have to jump to the load board. They don't have to hit the spot market, and they're also dealing with fraudulent carriers out there that are giving themselves a bad name. Shippers are getting a bad name. Brokers are getting a bad name because of unethical practices, and people don't understand, when they're trying to rake people over the coals, that your brand image and reputation's at stake in every move that you make. And if you're not doing the right things to take the right steps to prevent fraud from happening, that's going to kill you too. So, there's so many different aspects to your question that, it really depends on the individual and how good they are at finances. It really is.
Well, something that definitely impacts that as well is what you just mentioned there, fraud. And that's something that we hear a ton about in the industry today. From your perspective, I'd like to dive in a little bit on that. How big is this problem in fraud, and kind of what's the typical that you've ran into with it?
You know what? And here's another thing. And I am part of the Freight Fraud Task Force.
Okay.
People start hearing a little bit more of that as we start really bringing the organization and the structure together. We've got probably well over 300 years of experience that will be in this group. That are SMEs in their own specific committees and subcommittees, in insurance, fraud, double brokering, theft, cyber security. We're bringing it all together. But over 45 years, I'm happy to say I've never faced fraud, theft, or double brokering. And I'm one of very, very few.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have those tools back then. So it's like, well, they've got more sophisticated, the digitalization of, logistics there, but I'm on top of it. And a lot of people aren't doing the proper vetting to protect themselves. And when you're looking at cheap freight has a lot to do with fraud as well, and the shippers are trying to save $700 on a load, but it only takes one bad actor, if they're not doing the vetting, that goes out there that doesn't do pre-checks on their vehicles, and they're 250 miles away from the shipper, and they have a steer tire blow out, and they take out a family of four. Yeah. The question I have for people out there, whether you're a carrier, a broker, or shipper, is, do you want your brand image and reputation destroyed because you wanted to save a little bit of money? It's going to cost you a lot more than $700 when that happens. That's when you get into the nuclear verdicts, thermonuclear verdicts. I mean, we're talking like there's the one in Texas, $460 million, settlement, right. Wabash, there's another one as well. I mean, because people aren't taking the necessary steps in vetting properly. And that's why it's out there. I mean, it's $1 trillion business. I mean, it's a lot of theft out there.
Yeah.
and the regulations aren't being followed. That's one of the reasons why the Freight Fraud Task Force was put together, um, because government's not regulating it. We're regulating it, and we're going to get on state level, and then we're going to bring it to the Congress, and we're going to bring it to senators, the representatives of each state, and we're going to take the emotional part out of what we do, and we're going to make our decisions based on pure data. A lot of things out there. I understand there's a lot of people who are fighting fraud. Some are better than others, but a lot of it is subjective.
Yeah.
And what is that subjective? You know, uh, that feeling, or this is what I think. The emotions in that, what does that mean compared to someone else? If somebody's like, yeah, okay, great, yeah, I can use them, but another fraud vetting company says no, they're really, really bad, and here's the documentations. We've got everything to prove it. That there's the reason why you shouldn't use them, but they do. Whose fault is that?
Yeah. Well, thank you for everything you're doing on that front, man, because like I said, we hear about that nonstop. And to somebody starting a business in this industry and not being, as savvy as those like you that have that experience in this industry, that can be crippling right out of the gate to get mixed up in that. So seriously, thank you for all you're doing on that front to help make this industry a better place.
Yeah, we're trying. We've got a long road ahead of us. This is not an easy fix by any means,
For sure.
and we're surely not going to tell people what we're doing. We're only going to tell people in the industry our achievements, because we don't want to build a roadmap, and we
Right.
don't want to open a loophole for these bad guys and scumbags that are out there that will infiltrate it and take advantage of it. So that's why we're keeping it very hush hush as what we're doing in the back room. And I think that's the way that we're going to be able to overcome a lot of the problems out there.
Yeah.
Set a benchmark. Here's where we are when we started this, and here's where we are a quarter. We have meetings every single week, a group of us, and we're building, and hopefully you're going to see a lot of great things come out of this organization.
I think that's a brilliant way to go about it, because for dang sure the ones on the other side of the fence are going to try to find those loopholes and everything. So I think that's the perfect way to go about it.
Yes, sir.
Now, before we, get towards the end of the show here, I definitely want to tap in, because you put out amazing content, as if we've touched on several times. I want to dive into a little bit about your podcast and where this name, the Bodacious Cowboy, came from. Can you tell us a little bit of the backstory?
That's really funny. So we've been involved in horses for a very long time. My daughter was a 9-time world barrel racing qualifier. We've had 13 horses one time.
Wow.
So, I lived on that cowboy side, and we had the barn, and you name all the responsibilities and requirements of ownership of horses. You can imagine what I did. I had a cowboy, hat on, chaps, always dirty, eating manure, seriously, playing in it. I mean, the whole nine yards. It just comes with the territory. So I was on this podcast, and a friend of mine from Boston, he walked into a liquor store, and he saw this guy on a beer can. It was a IPA, and it didn't really look like me. I mean, I'm the only one with this type of mustache out there.
Yeah.
The best mustache in logistics, I should say.
Love
And he had the cowboy hat on, and he said something about bodacious. And the next thing he knew, we were on his podcast, and he said, "Hey, there's the Bodacious Cowboy." After that,
Stuck.
it stuck, and everybody knows me at that. That's when I first started out the podcast. I had my cowboy hat on, the sunglasses, the big jacket on, the whole thing, the cowboy boots on, and it's a gimmick, it's a trademark. People gravitate towards that, because I try to make the logistics fun. Logistics is such a pain in the ass, Alex, that a lot of people are out there just getting stressed out. And, I have a lighter side. You don't want to get on my bad side, number one. But my lighter side is that I just try to enlighten people, make them feel a little better, and say stupid crap and stuff like that, just to make them laugh and giggle and stuff like that. But it's just a trademark that's taken off. So thanks to my buddy up there in Boston, man, it was all his fault. I keep on telling him that every day. Thanks.
That's fantastic. I love to hear the backstory there. So, with the podcast, what sparked you to launch that off?
Well, a good friend of mine had me on his podcast, and he got make it a long story short, he got throat cancer, and he didn't know that whether or not he'd be able to continue doing his podcast. He was in Canada. And so I said off to him, and I was nuts at the time, to going back 4 years ago. I said, listen, man, Dan, you've done a great thing here. You got a great following. You're teaching a lot of different people. I hate to see this thing go to waste,
Right.
And so I said, I'll jump in the seat, and I'll take the horns, and I'll run with it until you're better. I did it for 9 months, and after that, he came back on, and it was time for me to move on. And I said, I'm going to try this stuff. I'm not the type of person that's always likes to be in the camera eye, sort of speaking, but I just became comfortable with it. And I've been on hundreds of podcasts, and I started this empowering women into logistics because I've worked with fabulous women over the decades, much smarter than me. Some of them mentored me. I mentored them. I watched them climb. I watched the sacrifices and the problems and issues that they had, where I circumvented it and made changes. And help develop them. I mean, since the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Title VII, we're still not where we need to be. And when women are still making 86 cents on the dollar, we've got a problem. We've got a huge problem out there. And so, I reached out, who was one of my best friends, and I just happened to ask her, Christy Knichel from Knichel Logistics. I said, Christy, what are you doing? Would you like to be a co-host of this? And I told her what we were doing and everything, and we hit it off. And we've talked, and with some fantastic women that are out there that are movers. We gave our first Empowering Women into Logistics award, $2,600 scholarship to a woman.
Nice.
I mean, we're the first ones that did something that, all of our sponsorship money, we don't put in our pocket. We give it to a nominated deserving woman every year. We got a nice little crystal, like not a trophy, but like a plaque. That's that has their name and our sponsors and all of that. And we're going to continue to do that. And we're looking for new sponsors for this year as well. Because we believe in it. And, I'm also, a part of the Broker Carrier Summit as well. And I've been following Dan Lindsay, the founder and president of it. And I back him up 100%. And I've been to 3 of them. I wasn't at the one in Indy when he first started. And I've been to 3 after that, afterwards. And they're back at Indy this year, actually April 28th. I believe, and I couldn't make it because I've got so much stuff going on. But I talked to Dawn at Green Screens, and I told her about, we were talking, and I said, you should have some women in logistics in there. I think it would be advantageous for the Broker Carrier Summit because we've been hearing that it was a bro show, and that there was mostly men, which was false. That was a false narrative. And there were women there. And so she took it by the horns and got Christy involved in it. Nicole Glenn is involved with it, as well as other women in it. And it's taken off. And now it's a whole new part of the Broker Carrier Summit. And we're going to be, we sponsor it, and we're going to be giving out and the Storytelling Chronicles Empowering Women into Logistics Award at the BCS every year.
Nice.
So, we're trying to get women noticed out there.
Yeah.
We're trying to help women be much better than they are. Not to say that they're bad, but we know the obstacles, and the barriers that they're facing, and we just want to make it an even playing field. I have women in my family, and uh, I understand the problems, even with my daughter and stuff like that. So, there's a reason why I do this, and that's why I'm trying to get other men involved in this,
Yeah.
Alex, to support them. They need all of our support. I'm even I'm also a member of Women in Trucking as well, because I want to back them, all the women out there.
Yeah.
Um, it's important. It really is important for this industry, not just for logistics, for supply chain, for maritime, you name it, even drivers out there as well, women drivers, they need our support. It's tough. It's tough out there.
Man, this is why I love these conversations, to be able to tap into that and learn of all this amazing stuff you're doing. You're a solid guy, man. I knew you were before, but to be able to have this conversation has really been enjoyable. I appreciate that. Thank you for all you do in the industry, man.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I love doing it, and if I could help somebody out, and one of the biggest things out of my whole career, if I had to name one thing, is that being able to mentor somebody, 30 years ago and watch them move up the
Yeah.
ranks and get into the director role and the VP role, even higher than that, and saying, you know what, that's the best feeling as a logistician, to know you had a little part in that, to help that, and we had that way back in the dark ages, 40 years ago. It was called the Management Assessment Program, or MAP, where we picked out an associate and we developed them, and we mentored them and coached them and disciplined them. And I always had that open door policy as a logistics manager, that whatever I was doing, no matter how important it was, I dropped it, because that person that walked in through my door was more important than what I was doing there, and they needed my full attention. And that's why I say the most important part of logistics is listening, but listening with intent. That's the optimal word, intent. You have to understand what your people in the trenches are doing, to get a better pulse on what's happening in your department, in logistics, in your operation. And you always need to bring those subordinates, associates, into big meetings, where a lot of managers out there fail to do, because those are the people that are in the trenches, like I just said, that are doing the hard work. They know it better than you, and I hope so. It's up to a manager, logistics manager, to know everybody's position and what they do and what it entails. But it's also very important to make sure they do it better than anybody else that's out there, and don't keep them. Let them go. Let them fly. If they're really doing a great job, it's a hard thing to let really good people go, but that's your job. That is your job, to get them moving so they can do what you're doing. It takes time.
Man, you're another one of these guys. I feel like we've tapped into so many gold nuggets, but I feel like there's so much more to tap into. And let's see if we can twist your arm and get you back on here for another episode someday.
Absolutely. Anytime, Alex. I'd be happy to join you.
I love that. Well, we've jumped around and touched on a lot of great stuff this episode. As we come to a close here, anything you think that we've missed worth throwing in?
No, I know a little about a lot of things from cradle to grave, in a lot of verticals and niches. So I'm sure that we missed a lot of things, but maybe we can touch on that the next time when I come on board. Like I said, I'm an open canvas. If there's something that I do not know, I'll let you know. I'm going to say, you know what? I know somebody, if you want an answer to that, who's an SME, subject matter expert, that could definitely answer that. But during my whole career, as an ending statement, never wanted to pigeonhole myself in one specific spot in logistics, because it would be detrimental to my career. If you want to grow in the industry, you should know a little about a lot of things from cradle to grave, so that if a specific question comes up, you have that knowledge to have some type of intellectual conversation with that person, and then be able, the hardest part, don't let your ego get ahead of you, but know when to say, no, I don't know. And here's what I'll do for you. I'm going to find out that
Yeah.
answer and I'll get back to you. But
Yeah.
don't overextend yourself and talk about something that you have no knowledge on, because it's going to bite you in the ass in the end. You know,
Yeah. I
something.
couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. That's one thing that always stands out to me with somebody. You get to a certain point when somebody always has an answer for everything. You can kind of just tell, like, they're just making it up on the spot. I respect you 100 times more if you're willing to say, I don't know, but I'm gonna find out. Like,
Yep.
perfect. That means the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we've covered a lot here. I want to, before we go, give you the opportunity, and we've touched on a lot of these, but just kind of spitfire around here. Let us know how to find out more about you, get in touch with you, your business, and everything you're involved in.
Yeah, sure. So I'm sure everybody can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can look me up. Let's connect. If you have any questions out there that you want to bounce off to me, I'd be more than happy, to answer any questions that you have. Send me a DM. We're also looking for sponsors, companies out there that want to sponsor Empowering Women into Logistics podcast. Reach out to Christy Knichel or myself. You can DM both of us anytime. We're glad to have you on board and talk a little bit more what we do and what our narrative is. And, the Storytelling Chronicles is on every other week on Mondays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Between 2:30 and 3:30, we have wonderful guests that are on there, both men and women, men who do support, women in logistics, and trucking and supply chain. Name of my company is RGTX Logistics Solutions. I'm not a broker. I'm a dedicated service provider. We do things a lot different out there. If you want to talk and learn more about the company and what we do and why, you can reach out to me as well. Or you can send me an email at jeffd@rgtxlogistics.com. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Fantastic. And we'll make sure to get those in the links below. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. Let us pick your brain today. And thank you so much for everything you do in the industry, because you're involved in a ton, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Until next time, everybody stay safe out there. Have a great day.